Have you ever heard the saying, "Don't saw off the branch you're sitting on"? Well, my new boss didn't just saw off the branch. He set the whole tree on fire while screaming at me that I was useless. On the morning of the 20th, literally the most critical day of the month for any business's cash flow, he shoved me out of the office and said, "My daughter needs a job, so you're fired. Pack your stuff, now." He thought he was just getting rid of an annoying office clerk. He thought the title of president gave him absolute power like some sort of king. But there was one tiny little detail he forgot, or maybe he was just too lazy to check the paperwork. I wasn't just an admin assistant. I was a 10% shareholder in the company. And more importantly, I was the only person in the building who knew that his title of president actually had zero legal authority. He wanted me to quit immediately? Fine. Malicious compliance is my specialty. But he was about to learn that firing me was the most expensive mistake of his entire life. Welcome to the story of the downfall of an arrogant Nepo Baby. My name is Emily, and I'm 32. 10 years ago, right out of high school, I joined Miller Paving, a family-owned paving company in the suburbs of Ohio. Back then, we were a small crew of about 20 people, but the vibe was immaculate. Mr. Miller, the founder, was a legend. He knew every employee's name, knew their kids' birthdays. His wife, Catherine, would stop by the office with trays of hot homemade brownies. Their daughter, Kelly, was a powerhouse. She could drive a steamroller on site and then come inside and handle complex tax filings. Her husband, Mark, was the site manager, and the crew respected him immensely. They were the typical American dream family, hardworking, humble, and kind. I loved this job. I loved being part of building something. But life doesn't stay perfect forever. Late last year, Mr. Miller was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The whole company was devastated. He decided to retire to focus on treatment. The original plan was perfect. Mark, his son-in-law, would step up as president. We were all on board with that. And then, Tom showed up. Tom was the Millers' eldest son, the prodigal son who had been disowned 30 years ago. According to the veteran employees, Tom was a nightmare in his youth. Fighting, street racing, and the final straw was getting involved in a pyramid scheme that almost bankrupted the family. Mr. Miller kicked him out, and they hadn't spoken since. But when Tom heard his dad had cancer, and probably smelled an inheritance, he suddenly reappeared. He threw himself at the foot of Mr. Miller's hospital bed crying, swearing he had turned his life around. "Dad, I'm a changed man. Please, just give me one chance to make it right." Mr. and Mrs. Miller, with the soft hearts of aging parents facing mortality, caved. They didn't just forgive Tom, they let him and his family move into the guest house, and against everyone's better judgment, they gave him a job at the company. I saw the worry in Kelly and Mark's eyes, but out of respect for their dying father, they kept their mouths shut. That was the beginning of the end. Weeks after joining, Tom started pulling the eldest son card. "I am the firstborn male," he'd announce in meetings. "This company is my birthright." He refused to do manual labor, calling the workers low-level worker ants. He sat in the air-conditioned office, scrolling Facebook and barking orders. The crew started to hate him. Good people threatened to quit. The real tragedy struck 3 months ago when Mr. Miller's condition worsened and he was rushed to the ICU. Taking advantage of the family's emotional chaos, Tom manipulated his mother, Catherine. He convinced her that Mark was just an in-law, an outsider, and that only blood family could be trusted to run the business. The result? In a haze of grief and guilt, the Millers appointed Tom as the interim president. Kelly and Mark were sidelined. They were hurt, but they chose to step back to care for Mr. Miller, working from the shadows just to keep the company from collapsing. That left me, Emily, alone in the office to deal with President Tom. Working under Tom was a living hell. My workload tripled because Kelly wasn't in the office anymore. I was working until midnight while Tom spent his days whining and dining clients, which actually meant going to strip clubs and betting on horses. But the thing that disgusted me the most was how he treated company funds. Last week he threw a stack of receipts on my desk. Reimburse these, Emily. I picked them up. One receipt was for $4,000. For women's shapewear? Sir, I can't reimburse this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This is lingerie. This is not a business expense. Tom's face turned beet red. Don't you dare talk back to me. That is for my wife, the first lady of this company. She needs to look good to represent our brand. Pay it. I can't, I stood my ground. The IRS will eat us alive if they see this on the books. Tom smirked, a nasty, greasy smile. Fine. Then we pivot. We'll start selling shapewear. Put it in inventory. Force the paving subcontractors to buy it. Tell them if they want to keep their contracts, they need to buy a $4,000 set of underwear for their wives. Easy money. I looked at him like he was an alien. He wasn't just stupid, he was unethical. I refused flat out, and from that moment on, I had a target on my back. And then, the fateful day arrived. The 20th of the month, payroll and accounts payable day. I got to the office at 7 a.m., prepping dozens of wire transfers and checks for our suppliers. Tom waltzed in at 9 a.m., looking hungover and angry. Emily, pack your things. I looked up, confused. Excuse me? You're fired. Right now. My daughter just graduated college. She needs a job. She's going to sit in this chair. She's family, so she won't harass me about receipts like you do. I stood there, frozen. But sir, today is the 20th. It's payment day. I need to wire money to our longtime suppliers. I need to— Shut up, Tom screamed, physically shoving me toward the door. Let my daughter handle it, or screw 'em. Tell the suppliers if they want their money, they can come beg for it. Now get out. He pushed me into the hallway and slammed the door. The lock clicked. I stood there, holding my purse in the quiet hallway. Fired without notice. No severance, no handoff on the busiest financial day of the month. A normal person might cry or panic. But me? I felt a strange calm wash over me. A small smile crept onto my lips. Tom had just made two fatal mistakes. First, he violated labor laws. Second, and more importantly, he had no idea who actually held the power in this building. I didn't go home to cry. I pulled out my phone and called Kelly. Kelly, listen, Tom just fired me. He wants his daughter to take over the books today. There was silence on the other end for a second, and then Kelly's voice cut through, cold and sharp. He did what? On payment day? Okay, Emily, you go home. Go enjoy a day off. I'll handle the rest. It's time to end this. I hung up and drove straight to the beach. I spent the day listening to the waves, eating seafood, and keeping my phone on Do Not Disturb. By evening, when I finally checked my phone, it was blowing up. 20 missed calls from Tom, 15 screaming voicemails, and one single text from Mr. Miller. Emily, I'm so sorry. Please come to the hospital. We need you. I drove to the hospital. In the room, Mr. and Mrs. Miller were sitting there looking 10 years older. Kelly and Mark stood by the window looking grim. And in the corner, Tom was pacing, his face purple, waving his arms around. The second Tom saw me, he lunged. You witch! What did you do? Why is the bank saying I don't have authority to wire money? Why are the suppliers calling and screaming at me? You sabotaged me, didn't you? Quiet, Mr. Miller shouted from the bed. His voice was weak, but it commanded the room. Let Emily speak. I straightened my blazer, walked to the center of the room, and looked Tom dead in the eye. I didn't sabotage you, Tom. You just aren't qualified. What do you mean? I'm the president. I'm the eldest son. Tom roared. I smiled, reaching into my bag for a folder I always kept with me. Tom, do you remember 3 months ago when you demanded to be president? The board of directors, which includes me, Kelly, and Mark, was strongly against it. But out of respect for your dying father, I proposed a solution. I opened the document and pointed to the fine print. We appointed you as operating president, but you are not the legal signatory or the registered CEO on the business license. In our corporate structure, Only the legal signatory has the power to sign large checks, change executive staff, and represent the company legally. And that person, I pointed to the hospital bed, is still Mr. Miller. Tom's face went from red to ghost white. What? But I signed so many papers. Internal memos, Kelly chimed in, crossing her arms. Dad and I have been quietly reviewing and countersigning every major decision you made for 3 months just to keep the company from going bankrupt. We gave you a chance to prove yourself. And what did you do? You tried to expense $4,000 worth of underwear and fired a key employee. But I'm still his son. Dad won't fire me, right? Tom turned to Mr. Miller, his voice trembling. Dad, I just made a mistake. I'll rehire Emily. Don't listen to her. Mr. Miller closed his eyes, pained. Tom, I gave you a second chance, but you haven't changed. You didn't just hurt the company. You insulted Emily, someone who has given 10 years to this family. Tom suddenly got aggressive again. So what? I'm blood. She's just an outsider. Are you going to choose a clerk over your own son? I'm not just an outsider, I interrupted, dropping the final ace up my sleeve. I'm a shareholder. Tom looked confused. Shareholder? You? That's right. 5 years ago, when the company had cash flow issues, I used my personal inheritance to buy a 10% stake in the company to help keep us afloat. Mr. Miller agreed. Combined with Kelly's 30% and Mark's 20%, we control 60% of this company. Mr. Miller holds the other 40%. I stepped closer to Tom. As a major shareholder, I am officially calling for an emergency shareholder vote right here, right now. The motion, to remove Tom Miller from the position of president due to gross incompetence and attempted financial fraud. I second the motion, Kelly said instantly. I vote yes, Mark nodded. Mr. Miller opened his eyes, looked at his spoiled son one last time, and nodded. I vote yes. No, you can't. Tom fell to his knees. You can't do this to me. My wife, my daughter, how will we live? Maybe you should sell that underwear, I said coldly. I heard you have $50,000 worth of inventory sitting in your garage. Good luck with that. That night, Tom was stripped of all power. I demanded and received my full severance package, unpaid overtime, and a generous consulting fee to fix the mess he made, just to rub salt in the wound. But the punishment for Tom didn't stop there. When we audited the books the next day, we found out Tom wasn't just buying underwear. He was embezzling company funds to pay off gambling debts. Because the amount was so large, Mr. Miller had no choice but to report it to the authorities to protect the company from liability with the IRS. Tom was arrested for embezzlement. His wife, who was deep in that pyramid scheme selling the shapewear, is also under investigation for fraud. That college graduate daughter? Turns out she flunked out years ago and is now working the fryer at a fast food joint. As for Miller Paving, Mr. Miller decided to dissolve the old entity to cleanly cut ties with Tom's legal mess. Kelly and Mark formed a new company, KM Paving Solutions, and guess who is the new Chief Operating Officer, COO? Me. Most of the old crew and clients followed us. Business is booming. No more parasites, no more underwear invoices, just hard work and mutual respect. I still keep the termination letter Tom threw at me. I framed it in my new office. It reminds me of one thing: never underestimate the person quietly doing the work. You never know how much power they really hold. Tom thought that blood was a get-out-of-jail-free card for incompetence and greed. He was wrong. In the real world, respect and competence keep you in the chair, not your last name. What do you guys think? Was Mr. Miller too harsh for calling the cops on his own son? Or was that the tough love Tom needed? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. If you love this karma story, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for listening. And remember, be nice to your employees. They might just be the ones signing your pink slip one day. See you in the next video.